Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying. You join me again from the garden of my Airbnb, and I'm surprised to be doing this, but it looks like this is going to be my second consecutive video about electric cars. So last week's video, if you haven't seen it already, was about the Opel Corsa and the Opel Mokka, and I had a nice tour of the electric rally car programs by the team from Stellantis Motorsport. If you haven't watched that, go and watch it. I will put a link in the description. It was really interesting, and some of the comments were also really interesting. I suspect this video might generate some equally fascinating responses. So we'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to tell you about one other interesting thing though, and that is the Maximum Attack Rallying merch store. If you haven't looked at that before, go and check it out. You will find t-shirts, hats, and many other things. Otherwise, I think, well, I'm just going to enjoy the surroundings for a minute. I'm in, as I said, outside my Airbnb. Let's spin the camera around. Look at that lovely garden. What a lovely place this is. So, yes, very much enjoying my time here in the UK. But for now, I think we should talk about another electric rally car, and that is the Alpine A290 Rallye. So some of you are going to be rolling your eyes at the prospect of another EV rally car. I think I'm not a massive electric car fan. I've not actually had the opportunity to drive a full EV. I've driven some quite heavily hybridized cars that have full electric drive, and it's certainly interesting. You know, I think driving a car like that, I didn't dislike it as much as I thought I would. That said, I did still miss having an engine, and I miss having a gearbox and all those things. So I am very interested to try a car like the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, which has a simulated transmission, doesn't it? So I think that is a whole other video in itself, isn't it? But I find myself increasingly interested by the technology and what they're doing with it, certainly in rallying terms, and that trip with Opel was fascinating, really, you know, to hear what they've been doing and how things are working. So with all of that, with Opel kind of being the only company to really have what you'd call a series production EV rally car in the Corsa, it's interesting, isn't it, to see another manufacturer finally jumping in there, and that's Alpine with the A290. So if you're not familiar with the A290, it is the performance version of the new Renault 5, which is their small electric car. And I think that in itself is important, isn't it? Because the Renault 5 EV has generated a lot of interest. I think in EV terms, it's probably one of the most compelling. It's relatively affordable, it's relatively small, and it's got a nice retro-looking design. And I think it's, you know, I think Renault have got a bit of a hit on their hands with that car. So for the Alpine version to be turned into a rally car is significant. I think Alpine is obviously a brand with plenty of rallying heritage. So there's lots and lots to think about there, isn't there? You know, just to give you a very brief overview of the car, we don't have too much detailed technical information, but it is based on the top level GT variant of the A290, so it's about 220 horsepower, front wheel drive, and it looks very much like an Alpine A290, nothing out of the ordinary there. It's got a slightly uprated transmission, still single speed, I might add, but a ZF limited slip differential, and then all the usual stuff, roll cages and seats and all of that stuff. It also has much larger front brakes. I think they're 350mm front discs, 6-spot calipers. So technically, it is not massively different to the road car, much like the Corsa, but it's obviously going to be quite a bit quicker than the Corsa because it's a lot more powerful. And I think it is maybe more in the mould of the Mokka, and I suspect it will end up sitting in the E-Rally 5 category of the FIA or whatever it's called. So so technically we don't know too much about it, but I think there is something significant about it, because for me it's a big step towards expanding the use of EVs in rallying. I know a lot of you will think, oh my god, who cares? And I get that, but I think it's really important because whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, EVs are coming, and I think if manufacturers can use rallying to make EVs more interesting, well, surely that has to be a good thing. You know, if we are heading down a path where we're all going to be forced to drive EVs in the future, well, I would rather that they were as interesting as possible than just boring boxes. So if this can turn EVs from something really dull into something moderately interesting, then I'm all for it. And that leads me on to someone who commented on the Opel video. His username was edugj23. I don't know if I've pronounced that as it's intended to be pronounced, but I thought it was a really interesting comment. So he said that he likes the fact that it's based on a lightly modified production car in terms of the Corsa and the Mokka. And I really like that. I think, as I said, you know, you've got this, maybe this is a means to develop EVs and make them more interesting. But I think you could also say, you know, is this taking us back to something that's a little bit more like Group A or Group N, where we've got modified production cars competing? And I think that's something that a lot of rally fans are actually craving, isn't it? So, you know, it's going back to slightly more simple times. So maybe EVs are going to give us the opportunity to do that. You know, I think one of the advantages with EV is that the straight line performance out of the box is quite high. So you don't necessarily need to do loads of things to the powertrain to get the speed. And obviously you've got benefits in terms of durability and maintenance costs. So, you know, maybe this will allow us to have categories where we'll have cars that are relatively lightly modified. They offer decent performance without having to add really expensive engine and transmission changes. So, you know, maybe there's benefits here, and that this is going to give us a path to lightly modified road cars, like we had in the old days. So, you know, will this give us access to more affordable cars and a wider range of cars in the lower category? So I suspect that several of you are going to look at this video and think, no, I don't care, it's just an EV, I'm not interested. And I do get that. I do have reservations. I think the sound is obviously a big problem, isn't it, with electric cars, though this Alpine does apparently have some kind of speaker fitted to it. So that is obviously a cause of potential concern. But equally, I think, you know, as I said in the Opel video, as someone from an engineering background, it's just really interesting to see what they're going to do with it, how the technology is going to develop, how the range is going to develop. I think we're going to see something very much in the mould of the Opel series with this Alpine. So they've said about doing a kind of demo event to begin with later this year, and then from next year we'll, I guess, see some kind of single make series like the Opel. So they'll have their own service park with their own charging infrastructure and all of that kind of stuff. And for them, you know, I think it's a good marketing opportunity, isn't it? It's a good way to market the technology and try and show people that EVs aren't as boring as some of us think they are, and to just, you know, keep developing the technology and improving the cars. So I think it's interesting. You know, I'm not going to give up internal combustion rally cars anytime soon, and I think we're going to struggle to ever reach a point where all race cars and rally cars are electric. But I do think that there is space for EVs, and if we can use rallying to make EVs more interesting, then why not? You know, like I said, you know, there is potentially going to be a point in the future where we don't have any choice but to buy EVs. So I would rather we were doing things to make them more interesting than just whinging about it. You know, ultimately just complaining about how you don't like EVs isn't going to change anything, because whether they're the right solution or not, right now governments are forcing manufacturers to make them and forcing us to buy them. You know, that is the direction of travel for at least the foreseeable future. So I think we have to get used to it. So the more we can do to make them more interesting, then I am all for it. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because I want you to let me know in the comments what you think. Do you see any hope in this, or is it just another EV that you hate? Or, you know, do you think Alpine are going in the right direction and that this could be a really interesting championship? So let me know what you think below. As always, make sure you follow me, hit that subscribe button, and join me over on socials. Otherwise, I will see you again next time, where I suspect we will be talking about something other than EVs. Bye for now.